With Philadelphia Eagles training camp right around the corner, they just revealed some of their huge new plans that are coming to camp this year that have the potential to change everything for the Birds. Meanwhile, the Eagles could also potentially be thinking about making plans to try and extend multiple players at some point in the near future as well, but who are these players and would that be a good idea? Plus, Saquon Barkley seems more motivated than ever ahead of his first Eagles training camp, as he says he's looking to prove the doubters wrong this season. So we're going to talk about that and so much more news in this video today, and we won't waste any time. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so let's start off with Saquon Barkley and his exit from the Giants, as we just got some more behind-the-scenes footage from Hard Knocks showing us how everything went down in free agency, and safe to say that Saquon left the Giants and specifically the owner John Mara in shambles. As in the show, we hear Mara say before Saquon signs with the Eagles that if Barkley does end up signing with Philly, he's going to have a tough time sleeping, and then Giants GM Joe Schoen reveals that the Giants were actually prepared to make Barkley an offer for $12.5 million annually and $25 million fully guaranteed, but when he calls Barkley's agent Ed Barry back, Barry tells him that Barkley is going to get north of that, although he doesn't exactly specify how much more. So Schoen then says that the Giants aren't willing to go any higher and they're out on Saquon, so they didn't actually end up making him a final official offer, and then Saquon Barkley ends up signing with the Eagles, as we all know, and Schoen says to Mara that he thinks they'll be fine, to which Mara replies, quote, "I think we will too," before walking out of the room. And still, despite what he said, I just have a hard time believing that Mara wasn't completely sick over this. I mean, with the way he walked off, it just seemed like he had to take some time to himself to process what exactly just happened. And for Eagles fans, I mean, it's honestly just funny to see how the Giants handled this whole thing. And it's also just super exciting that Saquon is now on the good side of this NFC East rivalry. Speaking of which, recently, it seems like Barkley is motivated as ever and working hard as ever leading up to his first training camp with the Birds, as he's released even more videos of him running through drills and just getting in some more work on the field. And he looks to be in great shape. He looks very sharp and just completely ready for the season. And that's not just from a physical perspective, as he recently revealed that he's also super mentally locked in and motivated to go out and just have a dominant season in his first year in Philly. As Saquon recently talked to EJ Smith of the Philly Inquirer, and he told him that he's been drawing a lot of his motivation from his doubters, saying, quote, "Anyone that tells you that you don't get motivation from naysayers is lying. You see everything, even if you block it out, you make stuff up in your head. The motivation comes from me wanting to be great, having a purpose, being passionate about the game, and wanting to win championships and become a Hall of Fame player. Right now in my career, I'm far from that, but I feel like if I finish my second half of my career strong, I'm going to be able to put my name in that book." And I completely love that mentality from Barkley, because it really just shows you how bad he really does want to be great. And as much as everyone preaches about blocking out the outside noise, some of the greatest athletes of all time have historically embraced that, and like Barkley said, even made stuff up in their head to motivate them.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
So let's hope that Saquon has taken that criticism and doubt personally, whether it be from the Giants in the form of them actually not officially offering him a final contract, or from the fans or the media. And one criticism that has actually been floating around when it comes to Barkley and his signing with the Eagles this offseason is that he surely can't have many more years left playing at a high level due to the fact that he's now in his later 20s and also with the heavy workload that he's carried in New York, along with his concerning injury history. But Barkley isn't buying into any of that, as he told Smith, quote, "That's BS," and they cited the fact that guys like NFL legend Marcus Allen played into their late 30s, and Barry Sanders retired at age 31 in what many said was the prime of his career. And then he also said, quote, "There's this weird thing with running backs right now. Is it a difficult position to play? Yes. Do you take wear and tear? Yes. But who are you or anyone else to tell me how long I can play the game? I call BS." And then he talked about his injury history and basically said that all his injuries he couldn't control and were pretty fluky, before he also said, quote, "For me, it's simple. When I'm on the field, I'm one of the best, if not the best. I just have to stay on the field. Knock on wood, it's not injuries like a pulled hamstring or something like that. I tore my knee and I had 2 or 3 high ankle sprains that sat me out. Everything I want is still there. Everything I wanted to accomplish, I can still go out there and do it. I just have to believe in myself and go to work. If it doesn't happen, it wasn't in the cards, but every day I'm going to try and climb up that mountain and try to make it to the top." So it sounds like Barkley has super high expectations for himself this year, and he's confident that he can still accomplish his goals. And it definitely seems like he can, again, with him just being in great physical shape because of his hard work this offseason, and also with the fact that he's super motivated and now is also in an ideal situation in Philadelphia with all the talent that they have around him on offense. So all in all, it seems like Barkley is primed to have an incredible year, and he seems as ready as he possibly can be with training camp just right around the corner. Speaking of which, the Eagles also could potentially be thinking about maybe extending a few of their better players as they get closer to training camp, with a recent Bleacher Report article from Alex Ballantyne ranking 3 guys the Birds should consider wrapping up for the foreseeable future, with third on the list being tight end Dallas Goedert, as the article explains how they could look to extend him soon to get some of the short-term cap benefits, and it also mentions mentions how Goedert has been a reliable target for Hurts over the years. However, the article also raises some questions as to whether this would be a good idea, saying, quote, however, an extension would take him beyond that age 30 season, and Goedert has shown some signs of wear and tear throughout his career. He hasn't played 16 games or more since his rookie year in 2018. Adding another year or two to Goedert's contract wouldn't be a completely ridiculous decision, but it's fairly low on the list of priorities right now. And I definitely do see what the article is saying and agree to some extent, as Goedert has had injury issues and he is getting a little bit up there in age, so a huge extension may not be the smartest thing, but that said, maybe a 1 or 2 year extension would make more sense and something within the realm of possibility. And I personally think that if the Eagles can do that, then they should, because Goedert has consistently been a very good and reliable player for the Birds at the tight end position, and it seems like he's going to be even better this year in Kellen Moore's offense that's expected to use the tight ends more. So all in all, I do think it would be a solid move to extend his contract a bit. And now moving on to the next guy, we look at defensive tackle Milton Williams, who I have talked a little bit about possibly getting an extension earlier this offseason, and this article explores the possibility of that as well, with Ballantyne saying that Williams hasn't really established himself as a starter, but rather a really high quality rotational piece on the defensive line. And he also said that while he doesn't think Williams has earned himself an extension at this current moment, he seemed to predict that he could, saying, quote, Williams should take on a larger role this season. With Fletcher Cox calling it a career, the Eagles still have a need for depth on the interior defensive line, and Williams came away from the 2023 season with a respectable 69.7 grade from PFF. It isn't as though the Eagles would be dramatically hurt on defense if Williams walks away next season, but he is someone that could play a role for a while. Now personally, I do think that Milt's someone with a really high ceiling, as he showed flashes of being really good before, and I think that he's going to play a huge part in the Eagles defensive line this season, and I also think given a bigger role, he's probably going to have the best year of his career and truly earn himself an extension, although it seems like the Eagles already have interest in giving him one, with Jake Rabati reporting that Milt and the Eagles have had preliminary discussions about an extension, but it's unsure if one will actually get done before the season. So it sounds to me like Milton Williams is going to be an Eagle for the foreseeable future, and I love that personally because I really do think the rotation of him, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis has the potential to be special for years to come. And now staying with the defensive line, we get to the number 1 guy listed in the article in defensive end Josh Sweat, who is on a 1-year restructure and is set to become a free agent next offseason if nothing happens before then. Now, the article says that he is the player most deserving of an extension soon, but it's just unclear if the Eagles really do want to keep him there for the long term, considering he was just on the trade block earlier this offseason, and they also have Nolan Smith developing behind him. However, the article cites that the Eagles' other edge rushers, including Smith, aren't quite as proven as Sweat, before saying, quote, ultimately, Sweat has been a consistent pass rusher for the Eagles. His sack totals don't necessarily confirm it, but his pressure rate has been between 11.9 and 12.8% in 4 of the last 5 seasons, per Sports Info Solutions. If Roseman considers building a collection of pass rushers who can wreck opposing offenses as a priority, then he might consider working out a contract extension that keeps Sweat around for a while. And I definitely do think this is interesting, because part of me actually really wants to see if Nolan Smith can develop into a good enough player to be an effective starter for this Eagles team someday, but the other part of me knows that Josh Sweat is an extremely talented player, and he has been productive for the Eagles over the years, and he's still just 27 years old, so I feel like extending him for a few more years would not be a bad idea at all, because there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to continue playing at a high level for the Eagles for multiple years to come if he is under contract, and I don't know if it's the smartest decision just to move on from him, because you have some other guys that you might believe in, but haven't quite given you the consistent production that Sweat has on the field just yet. But that being said, I am curious to get your guys' perspective on that. I mean, do you think the Eagles should extend Josh Sweat? You can let me know your thoughts down in the comments. But now, as far as the possibility of any of these extensions actually getting done before training camp starts, I don't exactly find that to be super likely, but with camp now starting up in less than a week, there's going to be plenty more storylines to discuss besides that, and we actually already got a pretty big one, with reports coming out recently that the Eagles are going to be making some big changes to the schedule and practices this summer, with ESPN's Tim McManus saying Vic Fangio is the main driver of these changes, as he wrote, quote, after pushing the limits on what a light, health-conscious offseason training regimen can look like, the Philadelphia Eagles are moving a couple clicks back toward the pack, with a nudge from old-school defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. Some change will be seen at training camp later this month, when the Eagles are expected to extend their time on the field after cutting down on both the number of practices and the length of sessions in previous years. So personally, I definitely like that change, because as opposed to 2022, where the Eagles' shorter and less frequent practices helped them stay healthy and didn't negatively impact them, 2023 was definitely a different story, as the players didn't seem to be in the best shape they could have possibly been in, and they seemed unprepared at times as well, and just lacking in the fundamental areas of the game, not to mention the fact that it didn't really help with cutting back on injuries either this past year. So I think adding back more and longer practices is the right move here, and it makes sense that it comes from the old school defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, as earlier in the offseason, Fangio even said this about the practice schedule.
Well, you got to make do with what you got, but I keep pushing for more.
Did you push for more this offseason before coming here?
I'll let Nick answer that for you.
And now at this point, we have heard from Sirianni regarding the practices, and he said, quote, "We're probably on the low-end extreme of timeout on the field. There are teams on the high-end extreme, and I think that we need to come up some." So all in all, things are definitely going to be very different this year during training camp, and sure, the injury risk may go up, but ultimately, I think these changes are good, as it's going to give the Eagles more time to just practice together and work on their communication and chemistry, as well as to just implement the new offense and defense, and really make sure that the players get really, really comfortable within the new systems, and also, it's just going to help them be better at the fundamentals and just the overall basics of the game. So again, overall, I think it'll be a net positive and give the Eagles a leg up when the season gets going. And overall, I'm just so excited for Eagles training camp because there's going to be a ton of storylines to follow, whether it be camp battles or standouts or watching the rookies and new additions, or seeing how the new offenses and defenses are looking, and also just hearing from the players and coaches themselves. So it's going to be really fun when things get started on Tuesday here, and I'm going to be covering all of it on this channel. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and also really, really importantly, turn on notifications so you're notified instantly when one of these videos covering Eagles training camp or just anything else Eagles related comes out. And also, while you're at it, make sure you drop a like to show some support. If you did enjoy this video, it really does help me out a ton. And also, leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. And if you want to watch another Eagles video, you can check this one out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.